So if you are a Jaguars fan watching this video, you know that the Jaguars are not in a super great position right now. The Jaguars are about to finish off with 3 straight double-digit losing seasons after peaking and going to the AFC Championship game in 2017. And we no longer have a GM. We have a lame duck head coach in the building. We don't have our franchise quarterback at the moment. And we just overall do not have a great roster. But all those things can change. The Jaguars did a huge thing about a week and a half ago, and that was firing general manager Dave Caldwell. That was really the first step in what is going to be a huge rebuild for the Jaguars. I know we've been rebuilding for some time now, but finally, for the first time since 2012, 2013, we were going to bring in a brand new GM, and he is going to be able to really hire his own guys and do whatever he needs to do to really build a winning culture and build a team that finally has sustainable success. So in this video, we're going to talk about exactly if I were in like Shad Khan or whoever the next GM shoes are, how I would go about rebuilding this team. So step one is really in Shad Khan's hands. That's just hiring the right GM. I know it's a lot harder said than done, but it's just very simple. Hire the right GM. You know, this GM is going to have a lot of power on the team. This GM is going to not only be able to hire his own head coach, but he's also going to be able to go out there and essentially build the whole entire roster. The entire roster is going to be built through him, and he gets really the final say on pretty much everything. So I guess I've made a video about different general manager candidates that I would want to hire, so you guys can go back in the channel and kind of re-look at that one. But I guess just some qualities that I'm looking for in a GM is that I want a GM that's from a winning organization. When the Jaguars hired Dave Caldwell, they hired the next up-and-coming guy. But he came from the Atlanta Falcons, and the Atlanta Falcons has had success before, but it hasn't been sustainable success. They have flamed up and had good teams, but then, you know, they go back down to earth and they don't make the playoffs for a couple years, and they flame back up and they do it again. So, you know, I want a guy that's from an organization that has consistent winning, you know, from an organization like the Kansas City Chiefs, the Seattle Seahawks, maybe over there with the Pittsburgh Steelers, you know, some kind of organization like that where it's just around a team that's had winning cultures, and that, you know, a guy that has been around it and can bring that kind of thing over to Jacksonville, because we need people that have done it before, not people that are just pretenders. Some other things that I'm looking for: I want a tone setter. I want a guy that comes in here and knows exactly what he wants. He brings in people that know what the GM wants, and he goes out there and he enforces it. You know what I mean? I don't want a pushover GM. I want a guy that comes in here with a vision and accomplishes that vision. I also want a guy that's a great communicator, and not only a great communicator with his internal staff, but also with the fan base, because I didn't feel like the current regime did a very good job of doing that. You know, I can think back to 2019, where after Jalen Ramsey got traded, we didn't hear from like Dave Caldwell or Tom Coughlin for at least a couple of months. And, you know, the first opportunity where really the media was able to ask really Tom Coughlin what exactly happened there, he said, look, that was a couple of months ago. Jalen Ramsey's no longer on the roster, so that's all I'm going to say about that. So we never got any clarity when it comes to the biggest trade in franchise history, why exactly that happened and what exactly went into it. So I want a guy that actually can come in here and kind of let us know what goes on, and also within the organization, because there is a clear disconnect between whether it be Dave Caldwell to ownership to the players. I mean, you look at it, man, and Yannick Ngakoue, I always come back to the fact that he took an $8 million pay cut to not play with the Jaguars. You know what I mean? So we need a guy that is really, it's like an open door policy that can freely talk to players. Players can freely talk to coaches, all that kind of stuff. And we don't want a culture and an organization that is bad. You know what I mean? I'm trying to find the right word for it. That is I don't know. I forget the word. I'm going to think of it later. But yeah, just an organization that is not, I can't think of the word, but just unpleasant, whatever. I don't know why I'm having such a brain fart. But, the big thing about the GM, like really, once they actually have the job, is to be able to correctly find a head coach. General managers usually get 2 head coaches, but I'd much prefer just to have one throughout the whole career. So really, like hire the right head coach. Some qualities that I look for in a head coach. First of all, I kind of want an offensive head coach. Now, this isn't like a deal breaker for me because some great defensive coaches out there. I mean, you look at Pete Carroll for Seattle, Mike Tomlin for the Steelers. You look at Bill Belichick for the Patriots, even Brian Flores for the Dolphins doing some great things. But I'd want an offensive guy because you kind of look over for the Vikings, for example. The Vikings have Mike Zimmer, who is a defensive coach that was hired out of the Cincinnati Bengals. And, he's over there and he has a great offensive success with Pat Shurmur. And then the Giants go ahead and hire Pat Shurmur as their head coach. And then next thing you know, they have a great offensive coordinator with Kevin Stefanski. And then he gets hired over with the Cleveland Browns. And now they have like Gary Kubiak back there. It's just, I don't want to have a great young quarterback and had to keep recycling offensive coordinators, had to keep recycling different offensive systems. You know what I mean? I'd rather have a guy like, how Andy Reid is and how he has his offense, and then he hires guys from within to really help run his offense, and he teaches them how to run the offense. And then, these guys go out there and get their head coaching jobs. You know what I mean? They've already had Doug Peterson go out there and get a head coaching job. Matt Nagy go out there and get a head coaching job. Obviously, Eric Bieniemy's kind of next to get a head coaching job. So some of these kind of factors is kind of how I feel when it comes to actually getting like a head coach on a team. But other than that, man, like I want a guy that's just like a great leader, a guy that inspires men, a guy that inspires coaches, and just a guy that people can really rally behind. Because, if you're not a great leader, you're not going to be a great head coach. I mean, it's just as simple as that, man. A great leader knows how to teach different people. They can teach the coaching staff, they can teach the players. Somebody that a team can rally behind and someone that the team can go to if they're having any kind of struggles with whatever different area. So, that's one thing. I also look and, I want a guy that's like authentic with the team, like a guy because I remember a few months ago I was talking to former Jaguars legend John Henderson, and I remember one big knock on Jack Del Rio as a head coach was that players never really knew what they were going to get out of him. Basically meaning that, some days he would come in and he'd be like a player's coach. He'd be real cool to talk to and stuff like that. And then the next day he'd be a complete dick. You know what I mean? He'd be almost like a Tom Coughlin, like a big, strict enforcer. It's like, you either come in as a player's coach or you come in as a strict guy and you keep it that way. You don't want any, this bipolar type of stuff within the organization, because that's something that'll piss a lot of people off. So, just with that, like a guy that's just authentic to himself, a guy that says he wants it this way and he does it this way, not someone that flip-flops. So also just a guy that's innovative. I want a guy that's proactive instead of reactive. I want a guy that is a trendsetter. I want a guy that, look, this guy is doing this great thing on offense and it had success. And then you had other people trying to copy it. I don't want to be one of the copiers. You know what I mean? I want to be one of the teams that's ahead of it. It seems like guys like Sean McVay, Bill Belichick, Andy Reid, Sean Payton especially, these kind of guys always seem to be ahead of the curve, and then it's other teams trying to catch up to it. So, someone that's innovative is something that I really want for the Jaguars head coach. So, really, once you hire a head coach, they're going to evaluate the current staff. They might keep a couple players. Like, I'm sure Keenan McCardell might be a guy that hangs around. Maybe they keep Terry Robisky, the running back coach. They'll keep some different things, but and maybe even they keep Jay Gruden. We'll see. But, I imagine Todd Wash is definitely gone. And just certain, once a head coach comes in, they're going to want to bring their own guys. It's just as simple as that. And some guys just might be, like when Jay Gruden took the job, he knew that he was probably going into a lame duck coaching situation and probably knew that, look, I might only be here for a year. So it just kind of comes with the NFL territory, really, when you come in here. So Really, the biggest thing about the GM when he comes in, he's going to have to evaluate the talent that's currently on the roster. And it's great that we have a fresh set of eyes doing this because Dave Caldwell, every single player that's on a team was either drafted or signed by Dave Caldwell. Now we can have a guy with unbiased eyes, no draft recency. I mean, in 2019, the Jaguars drafted in the third round Quincy Williams and Josh Oliver, a tight end and a linebacker. So maybe he comes in here, if Dave Caldwell stays around, he might keep those guys just because of recency bias, just because, look, I want these guys to pan out. But a new GM comes in here, they don't have any ties to anybody. He can say, look, these guys just aren't good, I'm cutting bait with them. So really, they have to correctly evaluate where the weaknesses are, where the strengths are, and that kind of leads into the next thing. The Jaguars are, as it stands, if the Jaguars... they need, if they go 1-3 these next 4 games, they're going to lock up the number 2 pick. You imagine that number 2 pick is going to be used on a quarterback, whether it be Justin Fields or Zach Wilson or one of these guys. It's probably going to be Justin Fields, but we'll see. You need to build the roster to where they can have immediate success. So the Jaguars right now, while the current roster isn't that great, the Jaguars have a lot of ability to change that. They have the most cap room in the NFL, and they have a lot of draft capital. 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, 2 fourth-round picks. A bunch of picks sprinkled in here. Not only that, the Jaguars are picking at the top of each round. So the Jaguars are going to have their opportunity to really fix this roster. But I would go about fixing this roster in a way that is going to allow a young quarterback to succeed. There's some different needs, like the safety position is a need, like a slot cornerback position is a need. But I'm going about it saying, look, the first order of business, we need to evaluate the offensive line. Right now, the offensive line is... it's kind of expensive right now. You know what I mean? You look around. You have Andrew Norwell he's making $15 million next year. You have Brandon Linder making $9 million next year. AJ Cann, $6 million next year. And you also have left tackle Cam Robinson, who's set to be a free agent next year. Now, I'm not going to go about being cute and trying to save money, being like, cut this guy, cut that guy, don't sign this guy, because if there's any, the main 2 spots that I really want to spend money on, I don't want to go out there. I don't need to go spend money on a big tight end, a big safety. I want to make sure that we fortify the trenches. I want to make sure the offensive line is good and the defensive line is good. So I'm not going to try to be cheap and say, look, I'm cutting Brandon Linder to save this $9 million. I want to make sure the offensive line is good so we can come in here and the next quarterback can be safe in a pocket. Unlike how Joe Burrow was, and Joe Burrow's rookie season ended terribly, I want to make sure the offensive line is set. And whether that be, I want to make sure that we're signing guys, we're drafting guys. I wouldn't mind if our first round pick is on offensive line. I wouldn't mind if we spend a lot of money on an offensive lineman. But, I don't really want to be, the Jaguars have enough holes on the roster as it is. I don't want to be in the business of just creating more holes. You know what I mean? I don't think we need to create more holes than necessary. We need to take a hard look at what kind of left tackle Cam Robinson is, how much money he's demanding, because I'd be all about bringing him back, but I don't want to pay him top offensive line money just because I don't think he's necessarily been playing up to that. So you really take a hard look at the offensive line, sign some guys on a defensive line, and just make sure those 2 spots are filled. I also think we need another wide receiver, just a wide receiver, a speedy wide receiver, a good route runner, a smooth route runner, someone like that. I think the Jaguars really need to really add to the team. So, those are some of the things I would kind of do. Just kind of learning about the GM needs to learn how to attack different needs. Obviously, there's a lot of needs, but a lot of them might not be able to be filled in 2021. So, just figure out what you need to do when it comes to that. So, then just letting the draft fall to you. Don't you know what I mean? And that's kind of obvious. That's kind of what we see every year. Don't reach for different positions. Just let the values kind of fall to you. And as long as you do what's right in free agency, you can kind of allow this to happen. Even though it seemed like last year in the first round, the Jaguars were kind of pigeonholed into really drafting cornerback C.J. Henderson and drafting defensive end K'Lavon Chaisson just based on needs. But, we'll kind of see with that. So those are some of the main things I would do. It's going to be a lot harder said than done. But, the Jaguars have a very attractive GM spot. I've said it over and over again. I think it's the most, I'm not being biased in this. I think it's the most attractive, man. You're going to be able to really build a franchise. This is like build a franchise mode, man. You got all these draft picks, all this cap room. We don't have to spend I don't want to spend all the cap room. I just want to spend it wisely because I don't want to overpay for different guys. Bring in a good head coach, man. We should be able to bring in a good head coach and GM duo, and then you're going to be able to draft a great quarterback. So do your homework, figure out what quarterback we're going to get, figure out how we're going to fix the offensive and defensive line, and let's bring some winning back to Jacksonville, man. But thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think of the video. If you guys could, definitely drop a like, comment down below, let me know some of your thoughts, and I'll see you guys next time.